And we're back here at Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Randy Hoback. He is the Member of Parliament for Prince Albert and also Shadow Minister Critic for International Trade and Supply Chain Resiliency. Randy, you're making a good point there, and I had to cut you off. Please continue.
Well, I just looked at this last situation this last year. If we would have had our ports in shape, if we would have had the ability to handle the capacity, when we've seen the U.S. ports just get basically overloaded with goods and some stupid regulatory problems they're facing down in California, for example, we had an opportunity to take on that traffic,
right?
But we weren't prepared to handle it. We couldn't take it on, and we lost a huge opportunity there, which is unfortunate. In fact, the Americans started paying ships to go through the Panama Canal and come up into New Orleans and into Florida just because they couldn't handle it on the West Coast.
Incredible. Well, let's talk about critical minerals, another important area where Canada should be a player. These are things that are used on everything like electric vehicle batteries or solar panels, those kinds of things, as well as your own smartphone. So this is an area that I know we're concerned about the supply chain for that too. Could you give us your perspective on it?
Yeah, it's one of those items that right now a lot of the critical elements are either coming out of Africa or basically, amassed in China, and then we're buying them all out of China. We've got all those elements in Canada, and the Liberal government recognized that. In fact, they talked about that as we've seen the scare at the electric vehicles, possibly the new Buy Back Better program that defeated in the U.S., but was coming into place, which would have relocated all our EV future production into the U.S. Critical elements was the tool that we're using to say, well, wait a minute, we may want to stay in Canada because we've got all those critical elements. But we have some big problems there right now. One is we don't have a favorable regulatory environment for a mining company to go out and extract those elements. So, the same regulations that we used to shut down the oil and gas sector, now the critical element people are facing those exact same regulations and saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm not going to spend $1 billion going through a resource development project, doing all my environmental assessment and consulting, which they don't have a problem doing. But it's the duty it's the government's decision at the end. It's that unpredictability, unbankability of that process that just say, no, we're not going to do it. And that is a problem that we face here in Canada with this government and some of the legislation they brought in the previous government when they were in their previous session of Parliament, Bill 68 and 69. So when you look at that, you're saying, okay, we've got all these elements sitting here. Not only do we want to extract them, we actually want to process them here. We want to make sure we're making the batteries and making the components that go around the batteries and everything else here in Canada. We want that chain to actually be here. That requires a strategy. And I don't see a strategy coming out of this government. There's just nothing there. So if we want to move to electric vehicles, we've got lots of things to consider. Our power grid, that's one big consideration. Now, you guys got really cold weather in Ontario this week, so I imagine you're getting taxed to the nth degree on the power grid right now. Let's throw another 100,000, 200,000 electric cars in there. So we have to make sure we can handle that. But then let's look at the critical elements. Okay, we need to make sure we can get batteries. And then we can't have batteries all of a sudden show up and then not show up and have a car sitting there waiting for a battery to come out of China. That's not acceptable. So we have to make sure we can be self-sufficient in that. And it doesn't mean it always has to be in Canada, but it has to be in a situation where we have a partner that we can trust to always reliably deliver it to us. And, so the U.S. or maybe some of our partners in Europe could be another alternative for sure, or partnering with them as we extract the elements to take advantage of the marketplaces. I just see so many opportunities around the critical elements side of things that we just need to have a proper strategy to make sure we take advantage of all those opportunities and not just be a person or a country where we extract it and ship it all away again and let Taiwan ship it back to us.
Sure. Yeah, and you referenced the U.S., and I've noticed that President Biden has done a number of executive orders on supply chain, including critical minerals, semiconductors you mentioned, PPE. It seems like there's a whole new strategy out of the U.S. when it comes to supply chain. Are you getting that sense out of Ottawa at all with the Liberal government?
No, in fact, the Minister of Transport was just talking about maybe starting a study on it and doing some consulting on it here in the new year, probably 4 years too late. So we're going to study it while they're acting on it. We're going to look at it while they're actually capitalizing and taking advantage of opportunities that exist right now. A lot of companies have been relooking at their distribution and their supply networks and saying, do I want to be that reliant on one country or one area? So how do I diversify that? So you want to go to like-minded countries. You want to go to democracies that you trust and respect and that have a bankability in their supply chain. So I always know I can get those goods, whether it's PPEs or whether it's chips or microchips or anything like that. And Canada would be a great place to locate a lot of those facilities, but we just don't have the environment to do that. We don't have a competitive structure. We don't have a taxation structure. We don't have a government that understands business. And, because of that, they're locating in other parts of the world, and Canada's not part of that thought process.